Thank y'all for coming. I think this topic is very interesting for everybody, right? My name is Sue Park. I am the Frisco ISD Council of PTA's president. We like to partner, I'm sure y'all are off PTAs. We are kind of the district PTA. We partner with the district, and they have allowed us to bring programs to y'all. And this is one of them, the college program, our college series. If you're not from a school that has a PTSA, most everyone's from high school, right? We do have 7 PTSAs, so if you have not joined, please join, because PTA is not just about fundraising. We are about advocating for our students, and especially the high school students. We provide ways that they can actually advocate for themselves. Next year we will have a trip down to Austin that we will open up to our high school students, and they can actually talk to legislators and talk about vaping and talk about school finance and how that affects them. So please consider joining. If your school does not have a PTSA, please talk to your principal, and then I will talk to them as well. I think we're just happy to partner with the district, and now here's Stephanie Cook, and she will introduce our speakers. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. I appreciate y'all being here tonight, and I super appreciate y'all squeezing in. Like I said, for those who weren't here, we had over 600 people RSVP for this event tonight, and admin doesn't actually hold that many people. So we've got some overflow rooms, and we're going to really work on getting everybody taken care of tonight. So we do a lot of parenting events here, and we love doing that. But I'm probably most excited about tonight than any night that we've done, because we do really great things here, and we have so many resources here. And so I love that we have our counselors here talking about what those resources are and making sure you know how to utilize what all you have for you. So we have a number of counselors here, all lead counselors at our high school. So Abby Cole from Lone Star. Yeah, go ahead, say hello. Sydney Marshall from Centennial. Lee Casares from Frisco High. And Jackie Smith from Lebanon Trail. And they are going to be guiding us tonight. Before we get started, I just want to touch on a few things. One, they've got a really cool thing that you can follow along on the slides from your own device if that's something that you want to do. And then it's also something that you can utilize later. The other piece is we're going to have an audience here. We have an audience online right now with Facebook Live. And then we're going to have an audience in our overflow rooms. They're walking that way right now. So in order to make us one big community for that event, you're going to see a slide that you can actually go on your phone. Hello. I was like, I didn't know we were clicking already. Y'all are awesome. We're also going to have a slide that lets you participate and ask questions that way. So if you do have a question as we go, and then at the end as well, if you will go to slido.com and use that code, you can ask whatever question you want. And then I'm going to be sitting over here, consolidating all of those things. Look at all this media. Hello, I love it. So we are going to consolidate all those questions, and rather than take them in open forum, like I said, we're going to join all of our audiences and consolidate those questions for the end. So I am going to turn it over to our Frisco ISD counselors, so if you'll join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Hi, how is everyone tonight? I'm Jackie Smith, again from Lebanon Trail. I'm going to talk about our high school guidance, what we touch on each year for college and career readiness. And I'm also going to tell you a little bit about our software program that we use called Xello. So each year, each fall, every high school takes time out of the student's schedule to talk to them about things that they need to know for high school itself, but also to talk about college information. So I wanted you to know that each year we talk to your student about college, and we start with the basics in 9th grade when they're wide-eyed and very nervous, and we go all the way through 12th grade when they're applying for colleges and they know everything. So one thing that One thing that we always do is we try to remind them that colleges what colleges want to see in applicants. And the answer to that is a well-rounded student. So we reiterate that every year as well. So in ninth grade, we have several focus points. One of those is we cover the types of colleges, from your community colleges to your four-year universities and colleges. We also talk about selectivity. How difficult is it to get into, X college? So we talk about your non-select all the way to your highly selective colleges. So Collin College that accepts everyone, to Ivy Leagues which accept a small percentage. We also cover, again, we're using that Xello program, and in it we cover, in ninth grade, we have into a series of quizzes. This is kind of... Hold it. Okay. That's not it either.
Sometimes this one, if one doesn't do it.
Okay. Xello, again, is that college and career readiness program, software program. And in ninth grade, what we have them do is take quizzes. There's a personality quiz. There is a career interest survey. There's an interest survey. There is a learning style survey. So they take these surveys, and believe it or not, when they're finished, it really does pretty much reflect what that student is all about. So once we have that information, then we can move on to the next piece, which is like searching careers that are best suited for those types of characteristics they have. Then we have two tasks for graders. One is to keep good grades, to make good grades. And the other, to get involved in activities. Two things to do in ninth grade, and those are it. And then each year we add something to that, or 2 or 3 things to that. But main focus, grades, and get involved. And then we really, again, as I said earlier, we talk about what colleges are looking for. It's not just about grades. You can have the best grades in the world and not get into the college that you want to because they're looking for well-rounded individuals. And that means academics are a big part. But so are your extracurricular activities. What are you involved in? Your community service. How do you give back to your community? Leadership experiences that they've had, and maybe honors or awards that they accumulate. In 10th grade, again, we're covering the types of colleges and maybe a little bit more about those selectivity factors. In 10th grade, we really start to how in 9th grade they're wide-eyed. But in 10th grade, they have in their mind, this is the college that I'm going to go to. And usually, it's an Ivy League that they're thinking about. So we talk about, just because it's an Ivy League school doesn't mean it's a better school. Harvard had 44,000 applications this past year, and they had 2,000 seats. So your chance of getting in there is about 4.5%. So you think of all the valedictorians that apply and don't get in. So it's a long shot. It's not impossible, but it's a long shot. And just because it has this small acceptance rate doesn't mean you're in an elite club that gets in. It's what's best for the individual. And for I think a 9th and 10th grader, that's kind of hard to see. I just want name recognition and I want people to be in awe of me. But about applications, over 50,000 applications. But they had 19,000 people who got in. So, again, it's not necessarily the school or the name of the school or the selectivity rate of it. It's what's best for your student. And there's lots of factors that go into that. So I don't want you to buy into that thing that sometimes our freshmen and sophomores do, that if my student doesn't get into this school, people are going to look at me differently. Because that's not the truth. Everybody's going to have several schools that fit their personality and their needs. But I don't want anybody getting caught up in just the name of a school. So we talked to them a lot about that. In 10th grade for Xello, we're really starting to explore colleges. So in 9th grade, they took those tests that, said, based on the results of your test, these are careers that would really lend themselves to your personality and your learning style. And then it rates it, into categories. This is an excellent for you. This is a good match for you. This is a fair match for you. Or this is like, stay away from this. It's a poor match. So it opens up their eyes into seeing like, oh, I never even thought about this career, but I like this kind of stuff. So yeah, maybe I'll take a look at it. So we have them start to like really look at the careers based on those results. And then start looking at the colleges that have the majors that will let them get into those careers. The tasks for a 10th grader, again, grades and activities. But in 10th grade, they take that PSAT test for the first time. And then we can connect those PSAT results to the Khan Academy. They have a special program where it links your results and then prepares a personalized plan for you so that you are more prepared the next year. So we want them to do that. And then we touch on college admissions tests, the SAT versus the ACT. And then again, strongly saying colleges are not just looking at grades. They're looking at your extracurricular. They're looking at your ability to give back to your community and your ability to show leadership skills and so on. 11th grade. Okay, this is when it starts getting like down to it and where they start, I feel like they're starting to like gear up like, okay, well, now we're talking about, we're only 2 years away. We talk about college possibilities. And we talk about looking at schools that you know you can get into, a safety school, like get a couple of safety schools in mind that you want to go to. Think about ones that are a good match that you're pretty sure you can get into. And then still keep those, 1 to 2 reach schools that are going to be a challenge to get into, but that you could still possibly make it. We talk about college visits. You do get two excused absences per year as a junior and a senior to go on college visits because you want to go when there are students at the college. We want them to walk the college, walk the campus, go eat in the go eat in the cafeteria, like look at the dorms. We want them to have like a full idea of what that college is about while students are on campus to see if they feel comfortable there. Because the last thing that we want is for them to come home at Christmas because they were so miserable at the school that they chose. So college visits are a big part. Maybe you can plan that. November is a great time to do that because we get out the whole week and colleges have to go the first 2 days. So November is always a really good time to go. And usually our spring break is different than their spring break. Also considerations, public versus private schools, location, the size of the school, what the campus culture is like, and most importantly, do those schools have the majors that you're interested in? Ask for 11th graders that year. Keep up grades. Keep up their... the PSAT in 11th grade is for national merit. It's the national merit competition, so those results go into that particular competition. And then we talk about the ACT and the SAT. We like taking that in the spring, and I know a lot of students start before that, but really, the spring, great time to take it because in 11th grade, they've had enough math by that time in the spring to actually do a good job on the math section, unless they're way ahead in math. And then we talk about, again, college visits, and then narrowing your college list. So it might seem like a long time. Ask during that time. So before you know it, you're going to be going on college visits with your student. We talk again about the ACT versus the SAT test, what details are on each test, what might be a better test for one person, what might be a better test for another person. If it makes sense that a person who loves math and who's really into math and who maybe that's the better test for them. We say both, see which one you do better on. We talk about spring testing, and again, Khan Academy, to help them prepare for that. Xello in 11th grade is, again, more college and career exploration. I'm going to show you some screenshots in just a couple minutes to show you a better idea of what I'm talking about. And then, once again, it's not all about grades. About those extracurriculars. It's about community service. It's kids, go get a job. Go get a job and try to be the shift leader at Arby's or wherever you're going to work, just so that you can say, my manager trusted me enough to be a shift leader that time. So any type of leadership experience would be good too. And then finally in 12th grade, one of the things that we know that they're lacking in 12th grade is like the terminology that's used for applications. Like how many people in here have 12th graders? Nobody. Okay, a couple. You have to familiarize yourself with that terminology in order to make a good decision on which application you're going to use and what type of decision you're going to go for particular schools. So we talk about the application timeline, which again, I know at Centennial Line, I know at Lebanon Trail, we use the little phrase, no Thanksgiving pie until you apply. 3 to 5 schools by Thanksgiving. And we push that really hard because a lot of deadlines are in the fall too, but get it out of the way so that you can take a breath before you start scholarship stuff. The types of applications, there's different applications that schools require. It might be Applied Texas, it might be Common App for mostly private schools, it could be coalition, or it could be individual school applications, just their own version of it. And then we talk about what do you do after the application? Well, you got to pay that application fee or nothing's going to happen. So pay the application fee and then request your transcripts. Make sure your scores get sent to that school. Make sure you're requesting those letters of recommendation if you need them. And then we also talk about how you can search for scholarships and what the district has on their website as far as scholarship searches, and then scholarship search engines that you input your information, and then they scour the internet for you, and here are the scholarships that you will probably find most helpful, or that the characteristics or the things that you've done in your high school career lend themselves to this particular scholarship. And then also the FAFSA, the free application for federal student aid. When you say FAFSA so many times, you kind of forget what it stands for. But FAFSA has now opened in October, so you use the year before's tax returns to file for your FAFSA. So if you want any type of financial aid, you have to do that FAFSA application. And then again, for task for 12th grade, retake the SAT or ACT if it's needed. Apply to schools by Thanksgiving. Complete your FAFSA after October 1st. Visit schools, apply for scholarships, and then just keep up those grades and activities. The next thing I wanted to do is touch on the Xello, and in that software program that there's 3 sections to it. The first one it's called About Me, and it houses all of those surveys and little quizzes that they do. Might take 45 minutes total, but that's what matches them up with possible careers. And then based on that, they're going to explore options in the next section. And so when they go to explore options, they're looking at those careers that are suggested and really delving into those. Okay, if I'm interested in this career, what kind of jobs are listed under that? How much would I get paid for doing those jobs? What would be my day-to-day activities in that type of job? And then what kind of major would I have to go into in college in order to get into that career? So it's a real deep dive into the schools too. So the third section is for goals and plans. So what you decide where I'm going to plan out where I'm going to go to school, what I'm going to major in, see what it takes to get that degree, and then I'm going to go into section. So here are some screenshots of, I'm going to get down here and turn around. So here are some screenshots of that first section called Matchmaker. And that's those 4 different quizzes that you can take. The first question is, what are you interested in? What would you like to do after high school? Most kids choose that middle one where it says more school or training, which means they most want to go to college. But then secondly, I did a screenshot of what the surveys look like. For instance, this one says, how do you feel about selling or encouraging sales? And so the student uses some of them are series of happy faces versus, all the way down to sad faces. And then, here's where it kind of gets interesting. There's a slide bar. How much money do you want to make? Well, of course, they slide it all the way over to $120,000. I'm going to start with that. But there's filters. So how much school do you want? How long do you want to be in school? It will ask several questions so that they can get some really good matches. First of all, based on their quizzes and the way that they filter it, how much school they want to take or how long they want to be in school, and how much money they want to make. And then once you click on those, and again, it's the categories of excellent, good, fair, or poor. And it's really funny, like when you're doing this with them, especially as freshmen, because they think everything's kind of funny. But, they'll pull up something like maybe one of the surveys asked them about, do they enjoy outdoor activities or whatever? And they'll come up with garbage collector. They're like going, what? That's all is a garbage collector? Not that there's anything wrong with that. So, everybody has to have a job. But I think they think like, that's beneath me. I'm not doing that. Or taxidermist is always a good one. Like, they don't even know what that is. And then they read about it. So the next thing, once they have those careers, they can go take a deep dive. What types of jobs are involved in those careers? And there's going to be jobs on there that they've never even heard of that they can go in and research. And then second, what kind of majors would I have to do that job? And then what schools offer this major? And then once they click into those schools, it gets really interesting too, where I think they kind of gauge, would this be a good place for me? Should I put it on my list of places to visit or to talk to my parents about? So, next one. And then you can explore the schools, which I think would be really beneficial for you because you're going to have to know how much money I'm going to have to give up to get my kid into the school that they really want to go to. So when you get into the schools part, it takes into consideration, like, do you want to stay in Texas? Do you want to be public or private? Do you, I kind of did the screenshot wrong. But how much money do I want to spend on school? Like, what's the maximum amount of money I'm willing to spend on a year of school? So you can use that little slide rule for that. And again, you can press the more filters and get more questions to narrow your choices. And then when you actually click on a school, you get all kinds of information from the enrollment to the ethnicity breakdown to how many male and female are there, how many in-state or out-of-state. So it kind of gives you an overall picture, but then it also tells you, like, here from this previous year, how many people applied? What was the average SAT or ACT score it took to get in? And then what are my chances of getting in? How many seats do they have for freshmen? And so on. So it kind of gives you a gauge of, like, do you have a shot at this? Of particular interest to you, how much does it cost? And it gives a breakdown, the estimated cost per year. I just chose SMU as something local that people would recognize. How much does it cost? What's the typical financial aid package? And what would that leave left for me to cover, or for my family to cover? It gives a breakdown of how many people receive scholarships, how much of your financial aid package would be in loans, how much of it would be in scholarships and grants, and so on. It also gives important dates, deadlines, that type of thing, when scholarship applications are due and that type of thing. And then it will give you, like, the majors, undergraduate and graduate. So, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with this program. The kids are familiar with it, unless they were absent, maybe as a ninth grader, and they don't recognize it right now. But you get to it through the student portal. And then you're going to hit students, and then student portal, and then you're going to look for the little tile that says Xello. And sometimes I've noticed it's on the second page. So there's a first page that comes out. It may not even look complete, like it's a full first page. But usually there's a second page to it, and you can find it. It's the same login as your Google account. So parents, I'm giving you this information, but I want you to sit down with your student. I don't want you going in like doing their surveys for them or anything like that. And don't laugh because it happens. So sit down with your student. Let them take their surveys. If for some reason they were absent during those initial days that we did the survey, let them take the surveys on their own without your interference. Don't try to influence them in any way. Let them answer truthfully. And then once they've answered that, then sit down with them and go through those careers that it's pointing them toward. And you can give your input then. And then start looking at the majors, start looking at the particular jobs, and then start looking at the schools. It's not, you don't have to wait until a certain grade to do all of that. But I think it would be beneficial if you sat with them. Let them play around, which they have if they were in guidance. But have them sit down with you and show you things. Okay, Mrs. Casares is next.
Okay, I'm going to see if I can find the sweet spot where this doesn't go in and out. But I'm just going to talk about how to kind of personalize this process for your student, and also just additional resources for you guys to look for. So one thing, procrastination is a time. Your seniors, if you have them, will tell you this. Don't put off starting the applications. There's plenty of time to get it done, but it's always a little bit heartbreaking when you have a senior come in January and they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to apply. And we're like, oh, the deadline was December 1st, and now that plan has to change a little bit. So be looking early. Like we talked about this starting ninth grade year because we want them thinking about it. We send stuff out before at the end of junior year. We have lots of opportunities. We really try to communicate that stuff home as well, but don't let them start thinking about college second half of senior year because they're going to have less. So I'm going to cover our college and career counselor partnership with college with, also different information presentations that you might see throughout the year and look for, and then college admission representatives from the actual colleges. So we have college and career counselors on each of the high school campuses. This is a shared partnership between Frisco ISD and Collin College. So there's 5 college and career counselors that are on the campuses, and they're shared between 2 high schools. Their sole job is to work with our students with anything to do with life after high school, with going to college, not just going to Collin College, but going to any college, with getting college credit in high school through credit, with helping to do applications for college, working on essays, looking for scholarship opportunities. So they are an untapped, sometimes, resource that are on your high school campuses, and they would love to work individually with students. So every high school has one. So just make sure there's a screen up here that's going to tell you who they are. So they are by campus. So you are more than welcome to reach out to them. They set up meetings with kids. They will meet with parents and students. Have your students sign up to see them so that they can get called down. Wherever they're at in that process, they're just an extra person. The high school counselors are always wanting to work with students on college and career, but it's just one more person in our building that can help your student and can help really personalize what they're looking for and what they need help with versus kind of the overall stuff that Ms. Smith was talking about. Okay, so college information presentations. So you're obviously engaged parents. You're here tonight. So Frisco ISD will put on different events. But our high schools also put on events talking about a vast array of things. But we always talk about college at least one, probably 2 or 3 of our events that we hold on campus. So we call them anything from coffee with the counselor to hot topics, whatever it might be. They're typically held in the morning, and one of the reasons for that, because we usually can get students to come too. So parents and students can come, and then you just go on your way on to work or with the rest of your day. They're typically about 45 minutes, so 8:15 until about school starts. So definitely be looking out for information about those being held on your student's campus. And again, oftentimes in the fall usually our first one is about college, about the application process. College events. So these are things that are actually put on by colleges. So we oftentimes get information from colleges in Texas, outside of Texas, that hold information nights, that have preview days on the campus where you can go and get tours, and they have a whole weekend set up for prospective students to come learn about their school. So be on the lookout for events like that. Go to college websites to see what events do they have for prospective students so that you can, again, get the information directly from the college. Those events can look totally different for different colleges, so it is really important to get on college websites to see what they have to offer. Again, the Frisco ISD parenting, those are typically held at night, like tonight. This year we did a 2-part series on college. that's always a hot topic, usually well turned out event. So I'm sure we'll continue to do things like that each year. And then, of course, the college fair, which is coming up next week at Heritage. There we go. Those are night. We always hold 2 college fair events during the school year, one in the fall and one in the spring. The one in the fall is really geared toward current juniors and seniors because they're really the ones that are in that application process, that are looking to do college visits. They're really trying to connect with those admissions officers from each individual college. The one in the spring is open for 9th through 12th grade students. For students that are really wanting to jump on, see how many, it's sometimes a little overwhelming, the number of colleges that attend that. That's usually in the 150 of colleges, and they're from all over the country. So it's nice for our students to see that there's more than UT, A&M, and Texas Tech colleges, right? Like there's hundreds and thousands of colleges, in the U.S., and there's a college for every student. So it's nice for them to see that there's more options than just the colleges that they see playing football on Saturday. So how do you find out about all this stuff? Well, look for campus communications. So that's going to come in your principal's newsletters or whatever they send out kind of on that weekly basis. Look for it on counselors' newsletters or whatever your counselors might send out, whatever that might look like for that individual campus. Oftentimes, I know many of the campuses have either a Remind 101 or a Canvas set up for their counseling department. So again, make sure that you're connected in the way that your counselors on your campus are trying to share that information. The Guidance and Counseling newsletter, if you're not signed up for that one, that's a Frisco ISD newsletter that goes out, I think, maybe once a month. And they're, again, connecting to events like tonight, other things that are going on in our community. Social media posts. So I don't know how many of you parents are on Twitter, but pretty much all the high schools are on Twitter, and they're posting and retweeting things that we see from FAFSA, things that we see from the Department of the U.S. Department of Education, like different colleges that post stuff. So it's just another way to see what's kind of happening. I only use Twitter for high school stuff, right? So I'm following, when I get on there, it lets me know what's going on at other campuses in the district. It lets me know what's going on at other colleges because you can just easily follow. And so it's a nice way to see things that maybe you wouldn't have seen other ways. District and campus websites are definitely want to make sure that you're not necessarily having to go to those websites all the time, but a lot of times we post resources there. So if you're unsure, you have some questions, oftentimes you can go to the campus websites under the counselor page, and we have resources for what should you be doing in 9th grade, what should you be doing in 10th grade, links to all different websites that help with the college planning. And then college admissions websites. I really can't stress it enough because the one thing you're going to learn when you actually start this process is that every college gets to decide for themselves what their process looks like. And unfortunately, it doesn't always look the same for different colleges. So it's a lot to keep up with. We would love to be able to spit off every college admissions criteria for every college in Texas and in the DFW area, but it's just not possible. You've got to make sure narrow down that list of schools that you're wanting to apply, that your students wanting to apply to, and then they're visiting those websites early to make sure that they see what are the requirements to apply, how do I apply, when are the deadlines. Start making a spreadsheet about what that might look like to stay organized. And another maybe untapped resource is college admission reps. So we have a huge part of college is they have admissions at offices, and they have representatives that their sole job is to talk to high school students and get people to apply to their school and enroll to their school. Those are the people that are attending those college fairs. Oftentimes, colleges that are even out of state will have reps stationed somewhere in our area. So A&M, even though it's down 3 hours away, they have a Dallas rep that lives here that works with our students in our area with getting into A&M. Same thing with UT. Same thing with lots of major universities. So get your student to get to know those reps. So they attend lunch visits at our campuses. A lot of times, this is a big complaint actually from college reps, is they feel like students don't take advantage of those times. So when your student's in lunch and they see a college rep from a school that they're interested in, they need to get up and go talk to that college rep at that table. That college rep is going to remember that conversation, because I'm telling you, they tell us all the time that students don't go talk to them very much. And that person is one of the people that's reading students' applications into their school. So that is a great way to start building that relationship with a college rep at a school that your student might be interested in attending. They're at college fairs, so getting that contact information. Not just attending a college fair and taking the information and walking away, but engaging in some authentic conversation about what that school has to offer. Having maybe some questions your student's going to ask different reps that they're interested to learn about different schools to see, is this a good fit for me? Possible campus events. So again, those admissions officers hold things like application workshops to help students finish an application at their different places within the city. There's a lot of great ways to get help from those specific college admissions advisors with the specific knowledge for the college your student's interested in, right? They're going to have the best knowledge about what their college is expecting, and you're getting the information directly from the school. Okay. Local, again, I talked about local admissions offices and kind of those local events that they will hold. So, student-initiated contact. It needs to be student-initiated. Those colleges do not hear from mom and dad. They want to hear from the students that wanting to go to their school. So get to know them. Reach out by email. Give them a call. If your student's working on an application and they run into trouble, contact that college admissions office to see, I'm unsure about how to answer some of these questions. I'm not really clear on this part. Get those questions answered directly from that school, because it's also going to give your student confidence that they know that they answered it in the way that that school is wanting, right? They're not having to just guess. Again, they're their campus. And then they can also give timelines. So they're going to you need to have this done by this time. Again, the timelines are different from every college, and it is difficult to keep up. I don't know if y'all noticed that Miss Smith had said apply to 3 to 5 good fit colleges. 3 to 5 is after you've done that narrowing down. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but we have students that will apply to 15, 20 colleges, and it's just not necessary. If you've spent the time to narrow down that list to schools that are a good fit, then you know that you've kind of gotten to the schools that are going to be that reach school, that good fit school, maybe a little bit of the safety school. But keeping up with 15 different timelines, 15 different applications, 15 different processes can definitely get very overwhelming. And I think a lot of times that's where some of that anxiety fall of senior year comes from, because they haven't done the work ahead of time to make sure where they're applying is a good fit, and they're kind of trying to do too much. Okay? And then so the last one is troubleshooting application questions. This is just a link, and I think we're going to find a way for you guys to make sure to have this. But it just I thought it was insightful questions to ask an admission officer. I just thought it was a good place to start if you're struggling with, I don't know what to talk to this admission advisor about. I'm not really sure. It kind of gives you some ideas of common questions or common things that you might want to know. And then these are just additional resources. These are all linked. So again, we're going to try to get that. I think we're going to post the PowerPoint so that you can be able to get to those links. So for scholarship and financial aid, I'm not sure how much you guys are aware, but in Frisco we have something called the Frisco Education Foundation, and they do a scholarship application for our seniors, just our seniors in Frisco ISD, that they apply to in December of their senior year, and they award over 800 different scholarships to just our students. Some of them are need-based, some of them are based on, I went to Spears Elementary, and Spears Elementary gives a scholarship to students that went to Spears. There's all different scholarships. There's something for everyone in there. It's one application that students have to apply for, and they're applying for 800 different scholarships. And the range of those scholarships can be, anywhere from a $500 one-time scholarship to, a $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 scholarship. Some of them might be renewable. So it's the types of scholarships are kind of a wide range. So that's one that you want to make sure your senior, when they're a senior, applies to in December. Okay, and we always have FEF come out to talk to our seniors to remind them and tell them about that process. Unfortunately, it's usually only about half of the seniors in Frisco actually apply. So you have a really good shot of getting it. FISD scholarship base, that database, so that, again, we mentioned for outside scholarships that counselors across Frisco find out about, we enter them in a database open to all students in FISD. So you don't have to worry about only Memorial counselors got this, so only Memorial students are going to find out about it. We enter them to the database, and that way all Frisco ISD students can find out about scholarships that come through that we get emailed or mail about. FastWeb, Scholly, and Go Mary are just different types of scholarship search engines. And so students basically put in their information, kind of create a profile, and then they'll get emailed scholarship opportunities, and they can just decide whether or not they want to spend time applying for that one. Local versus national. So local scholarships are going to be FEF scholarships, different ones that are just for students in our area. Versus national would be like your Coca-Cola scholarship, Wendy's Heisman, different scholarships that are across the U.S. And then FAFSA, we talked a little bit about FAFSA, is that free application for federal student aid, and then the CSS is a financial aid one that some private schools require. Most schools you're just going to do the FAFSA, but some private schools will require the additional CSS profile. So you could kind of click on that link and find out more about that. And then we talked a lot about Xello. Big Future is similar. It's one put out by the College Board, which is the company that does the SAT. They do similar kind of things, so that's just another resource to find, do college searches, do career searches. College for All Texans is a good resource to see for things that are specific to Texas. College Confidential is a kind of like a blog, wiki kind of thing where parents will ask questions and they get lots of feedback. So that's just a place that you could go to get more information. It's not like an official website that it's parent-driven, student-driven kind of thing. And then NCAA eligibility is for any student that's planning on playing sports in college. So not like I'm going to do intramurals, but I'm going to play for the college team, D1, D2 kind of sports. So that's something that students would need to do in the spring of junior year. At the end of junior year, they send their transcript to NCAA. They have to have a certain core GPA to be eligible to receive scholarships for either Division I or Division II schools. And then again, those individual college websites are going to have the most up-to-date specific information for those specific schools that your student is interested in. That's all I have. I'm going to turn it over to Cindy Marshall.
And just before you get started, I'm able to answer all of these questions live right now. So if you have any questions, you can go to slido.com. It's 2257, and I've been able to really personalize some resources for you. So go ahead and go ahead and ask those questions as we're going if you'd like those responded to.
Okay. I'm going to cover some advice from college students because I think that's an untapped resource. We've used that phrase a lot tonight, but some schools have a panel of graduates come back and talk to the seniors. And even if your campus does not do that, there are a lot of other ways that you can access college students. If you attend a place of worship of some type, there may be a college ministry. You may have neighbors that have older children that are in school. And college kids these days, they're still poor and hungry. So take them to Starbucks, and they'll tell you everything that you need to know. So because I know nobody really wants to sit and watch a 6-minute video, I'm going to break it up into 3 2-minute videos. And the question that our students were asked, this was at the end of our panel discussion, and they were just asked for one piece of advice or something that they wish they had known prior to going to college. And some are more well-spoken than others. You get what you get when they're 20, so bear with the volume.
learn how to talk to people and get out of your comfort zone, or otherwise you're going to be lonely.
I wish I would have known like what I wanted to do before I went to college, because like I didn't know I wanted to do nursing until like last year. So if I would have known that like say start of high school, I would have picked like more classes that would have like helped me.
If you go to Colin, if you decide to, and you want to transfer to another university, you better make sure your courses that you're taking better transfer over, because of that, if you don't pay attention to that, I almost got messed up by that. You're going to be taking the classes again.
I guess in high school, your professor, or like your teachers kind of baby you a lot, like reminding you to do stuff. I wish I would have known it's not going to be like that, because your professor could care less if you turn it in or don't turn it in. Like, it's all on you.
Expect to change. I went into college thinking like, oh, I'm not going to change. I'm going to stay the same person. Like, I know who I am. And then within like a week or two, I was a completely different person. And then 3 months, I'm a completely different person. But most of the time it will be for the better. And I would say that I am 100 times happier in college than I ever was in high school.
Make time for the things that you would like to do, and if something like pops up and you would like to do that, like hang out with friends or an extracurricular activity, that you do have time for that. So really balancing your time. Have some sort of system, like a calendar. I use Google Calendar. Works pretty well, or like a daily list of activities. So manage your time well, make time for the things you want to do.
Just take care of your homework as soon as it's assigned to you. That way you can have some free time after you're done.
Try to do like classes in the summer. It's only like $150 if you do it at Colin, and it'll let you graduate early.
Don't wait till the end to like try hard. You just want to start off well and keep it going well.
If your dorm has a kitchen, you might want to bring like a pot, a pan, like cooking sheets, because you get tired of the cafeteria food really fast.
Definitely like take time for yourself if you need it, and think about what you really want to do, because you could rush into something that won't make you happy.
All right, to be continued. But you notice some of that advice is very practical, and it's really fun to see our graduates come back and basically say the same thing that we said to them a few years ago. But seniors listen to college kids. I mean, they were hanging on their every word, so they are a great resource. So I'm also going to talk about college admissions testing. We're all talking about college admissions. So high school counselors do recommend for students to take their first SAT or ACT in the spring of junior year. And there are 3 basic reasons why we recommend that time frame. The first is that they've received the results of their PSAT scores back. The test was taken in October, and I think most schools have received their results. Parents should have received an email. If you haven't yet, then by Friday you should receive an email with those scores. And it comes with a score report that allows the students to see which questions they missed. They get their test booklet back so they can actually go over the ones that they missed and identify areas of strength and weakness before they go take the real thing. The next reason is that they have more curriculum under their belt than if they were to take it, say, at the beginning of their sophomore year. Trigonometry is on the SAT. It's a small portion of the math, but it's there, and it's introduced as a topic in geometry, but it has gone into much more depth in pre-cal. So if a student has had some pre-cal exposure, they're more likely to be successful on those questions. And then third, it still gives them time to retest if needed. So spring of junior year is a sweet spot, because if they take the test the spring of junior year, they're happy with their scores, that's it. But if they're not happy with their scores or they need something a little bit higher for a scholarship, there's still plenty of time to take that test. In a calendar year, there are 16 offerings between the SAT and the ACT. We get asked a lot from students, which test should I take? And this slide just shows you the popularity of the SAT and the ACT, and I'm not quite sure why it's, one is popular in certain areas, but colleges accept both. So we tell students that they can take both if they want to, but if they only want to take one, then we want to encourage them to figure out which one is going to be a better fit for them. Could you click on that link? If a college does happen to prefer one test over the other, there is a conversion chart that colleges can use to convert an SAT score to an ACT score and vice versa. But I will be honest with you, most of our students take both in order to see which one they do better on. Okay, so to compare the SAT and the ACT, they are used for the same purpose, but they are different in terms of how they're laid out and exactly what they're measuring. So to compare them, that's a little bit small, but you'll have access to this electronically as well. The SAT has fewer geometry questions, more time per question, and there is a math section that does not allow a calculator because it's focused on more the internal calculator that solves problems in our heads. So the questions are not as difficult on that section, but they're measuring problem-solving skills. On the ACT, there is less geometry. It's faster paced because they get less time per question. And there's a science section that doesn't exist on the SAT. Timing-wise, it's almost exactly the same amount of time. And this is the time without the writing section. So 3 hours versus 2 hours and 55 minutes. Negligible difference. The sections on the ACT are reading, writing, and then 2 sections of math. And you can see that the reading and writing combines for up to 800 points, and then the 2 math sections combine for up to 800 points for a grand total maximum of 1,600. On the ACT, the maximum score is a 36, and each individual section, the reading, English, math, and science, are scored 1 to 36, and then there is an overall composite score that is also a maximum of 36. If you have older students who graduated 2016 or later, they may have taken a totally different SAT than your rising college students are going to be taking. In March 2016, they changed the SAT. There is more advanced math, going back to the trigonometry I mentioned earlier. The writing is optional, and we already talked about the non-calculator section. So how does college admission testing actually translate into the admissions process? I think most people here probably are familiar with the top 10% rule, which states that students in Texas, if they graduate in the top 10%, are eligible for any Texas public school, with the exception of UT Austin, which caps their automatic admissions at the top 6%. For those students, even if they do really poorly on the SAT or the ACT, it doesn't matter because their admission is strictly based on being in the top 10% or being in the top 6%. So they still have to test, but even if they don't do well, the top 10% rule is law, and they have to admit them. But what some people don't realize is that doesn't mean the other 90% don't get to go to college. Sometimes, at least, the message that we get from our students is that they think the top 10% is the end-all, be-all, and if I'm not in it, then I'm doomed. And that's simply not the case for 90% of our students. That would not be a good thing. So there are some other examples of automatic admissions where the test scores come into play along with the student's GPA and rank. So in this chart, you can see that there's an inverse relationship between the students' grades and their test scores. I'm going to use Texas State University as an example. So you can see that if they're in the first quarter, they need a 20 on the ACT or 1,000 on the SAT in order to gain automatic admission to Texas State. If they're in the second quarter, they need a higher score, 22 or 1090. And you go all the way down to the fourth quarter, a student can still be automatically admitted to Texas State, but they have to get really high test scores in order to offset that lower GPA. So there's this inverse relationship. Anytime you see review, that means that it's a holistic review and there's not a number that's going to get them in. That it's going to look at their essays and their leadership and all those things that are beyond the numbers. So you may be thinking in your head, and you may have even put it on Slido, but Frisco ISD doesn't rank beyond the top 10%. So what are we going to do? Why does this still matter? Well, it does still matter because on the student portal, the students can access a quartile letter, which tells for each individual high school campus what the cutoff GPA is for their top 10%, their top quarter, their second quarter, their third quarter, etc. So even our students that are not in the top 10% and who don't have an exact rank, they can still find out kind of where they stand in comparison to their peers and use this chart to figure out if they would gain automatic admission. If they would, it's up to them to send that information to the college. All right, video 2.
Be okay with doing things and experiencing
college that, you know, you're not going to be with your parents or your friends or anyone, but, you know, you'll make new friends. And, like, honestly, one of the biggest things for me is that I learned how to just enjoy life and family. It's one of the best ones ever.
Be curious and to always have some sort of curiosity for a respective subject. Like if you're taking physics and you think it's completely useless for you in life or something, just appreciate it for being physics. Appreciate how that's how the universe works, for example. And then the other piece of advice would be if you write on your calendar, actually work in your calendar after you write it instead of just writing in the calendar.
My advice would be just like to stay safe and stay healthy, because that needs to be like your number one priority, like whatever like your goals are, because everyone has like different like goals and stuff. Like you just need to be like safe and healthy so you can accomplish those.
Your choices have consequences of much higher magnitude, especially of how that reflects your eligibility to be a part of the university or be a part of the programs that you're at. And that just goes for life, I think, once you're graduated, once you're out on your own. The choices you make, and as well as the choices that other people around you make, have a lot more substantial consequences. And that's not to say don't go out and have fun, but you have to be very cognizant of the choices that you make when you do go out and have fun.
When picking your professors, don't just pick the easy A professors. Pick the professors who have a reputation for actually being good at what they teach. That's going to help you so much more in applying it to your major once you graduate college.
Ultimately, do what you want to do. It doesn't matter what it is. Like, if you enjoy doing something, then definitely pursue it. But then at the same time, be realistic and then have a good financial backing in it. And also pick your friends very wisely.
We had representatives that were at four-year universities, community college, and we even had some that went straight into the workforce, and it was a really interesting mix of students, and I think it had something for everybody. All right, so moving on to test prep and TSI. Preparation for the college admissions tests. There are actually several free options. Khan Academy was mentioned a little bit earlier. It's both a website and an app, and your students may have already used this for online tutorials for any particular class. It's actually really helpful for that. There are also practice questions on the SAT and ACT's website. And if your student is trying to figure out which test is better for them, I would definitely recommend that they go on and do questions on both. And then different campuses have different options. The PSAT, Frisco ISD, has paid for the PSAT for 10th and 11th graders at all campuses for many years. So that's something that we will be able to offer the students as a practice version of the SAT. This year, we have also offered a free SAT. We offered one to juniors in the fall, and then on March 4th, seniors will have a free SAT on campus during the week. Some campuses have clubs or organizations that do a fundraiser that involves taking a practice test. And then advisory, the middle of the day time period, some schools are using that for test prep as well. Frisco ISD also has a partnership with Princeton Review, so if you're interested in more face-to-face type classes versus the online classes, they have several of those available. Face-to-face test prep is expensive, I'm not going to lie, but it is nice that we have this partnership because it allows us to share with parents and students these promo codes. So depending on what the needs are, the one that says free for Frisco, that is not a face-to-face class, but the others are, and those are great opportunities. That link, by the way, will take you to all the classes that Princeton Review has. There is other testing that doesn't have anything to do with admissions. It's not about getting into college. It's about being placed in the appropriate English and math level. And it's called the Texas Success Initiative, or the TSI. So it's for students attending a public college or university in Texas unless they're exempt, and I'll talk about exemptions on the next slide. It is a placement test for math and English, and this is one of the reasons that we encourage seniors, even if they're done with their 4 math requirements, to stay in math, because it's not so wise to be out of math before going off to college. It's to ensure college readiness. So if a student does not pass the test, then they will be placed in remedial classes, and those don't count towards the graduation plan, but they still cost money. So it's definitely take advantage of what we have to offer here in Frisco that's free, so that we can help prepare them to not have to pay extra for remedial classes in college. Where and how this takes place will be up to the individual college. So typically when a student gets their acceptance letter, there is information either attached to that or shortly following about how they go about doing the TSI testing. So if you have a student that's only interested in private schools or only interested in out-of-state, the TSI won't come into play for them. But for any Texas public school, even if it's a community college, the TSI is a hurdle to get over. The exemptions are for good solid scores on the ACT and the SAT. For the ACT, it's 23 or higher composite score with a minimum of 19 on math and English. And for the SAT, a 530 or higher on math and a 480 or higher on reading and writing will allow for this exemption. There are some colleges that will allow for partial exemptions. So if they got the math score but not the English score, then they would only have them take part of the TSI.
Learn to self-regulate. I think right now you a lot of pressures from parents and different things that you it changes what you want to do and what you're doing now. Clubs, extracurriculars. Like me now, I got into college. I'm like, oh, I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to do all these things, and then I had to drop something. So learn to regulate yourself and manage what you're doing with your time so that you know what you want to stick to doing.
If you don't get the proper amount of sleep, you're not going to be able to function for class. And especially if you do that the night before an exam, it's not a good idea. Just prioritize your sleep, that way you can be healthy and functional.
Take care of yourself. College is a very stressful time. You're kind of on your own, and it feels scary at times. You feel like a failure sometimes. Take advantage of all the resources that your university has to offer, whether it's the counseling center and the tutoring center. And then also call your parents if you're struggling. It's okay to call bawling because you're failing a class. It might seem like the end of the world in that moment, but I promise it's not. There is no shame in asking for help.
You're only a freshman once, so go to the first year events. They're literally nobody else has friends also. It's just a part of being a freshman is branching out and putting yourself out there. Go to the parties, go to the events, go to everything that you can, and get your toes in as much activities. Figure out what you want to do, and then from there you can craft the college experience that you want.
When they say it's one of the best times of your life, I really do think that's true. And it might sound ironic at first, and I wasn't convinced before I went to college that, how is this fun, all these classes and exams and stuff. But the reality is that you're not going to get this type of flexibility with your life probably ever again, and the freedom to kind of really do whatever you want and have each day be however you want it to be. And so many people are just trying to finish up so fast, but after college, you're going to have, each day is going to look more and more the same, and that's just, you're never going to get the freedom you have during these 4 years back.
Spend time figuring out what is actually important to you, what you value in life in general, and then once you kind of figure out what your values are, what your objectives are in life, what do you want to become, what you think you'll find some meaning in, then just treat your years after high school as just finding a way to do that, and then it's not so complex in the end.
Like a baton. Okay, how many of y'all are overwhelmed yet? Are we good? We feel okay? We just need to breathe, take a little moment, deep breath in, deep breath out. I don't think we've really asked our audience, how many high school families do we have? Okay, middle school? A few. Okay, awesome. Y'all are going to be set. You're going to be good. All right, I'm going to kind of talk about the nuts and bolts of the whole application process. You've heard a lot of information tonight. I know it can be kind of overwhelming. But the next few slides that I'm going to discuss, these are topics that we discuss with your students when we go into guidance with them. So we love your students, obviously, or we wouldn't be working with high school kids. But sometimes we know how they are. We have kids of our own. They're going to come home and you're going to say, how was your day? Fine. Did you do anything fun today? No. Okay, did anybody come in and say anything interesting? No, not really, because my 7th grader does that. So we do come into their classrooms. We do speak to them, believe it or not. So we don't just sit in our office and drink coffee and wait for people to come see us. Like, we do work with your kiddos. If you don't hear anything else tonight, please, please, please hear this. I know one of the other counselors already mentioned this, but I firmly believe, and I will always say, and I tell students and parents this all the time, students end up where they're meant to be. So sometimes it may be a different route. Everybody has a different route of where they're going to end up, and it's all going to be okay, I promise. You guys remember when your students were 8th graders going into 9th grade and you were scared to death that they were going to have lunch with seniors. Like, they're okay. They're going to be okay. Oh, and middle school parents, sorry. Like, that happens. But anyway, I just thought this little meme was funny. Senior year will be easy. Like, our seniors right now, they're finding out if they were accepted into school. They're applying for scholarships, so they're a little overwhelmed. And they all thought that it was going to be a blow-off year. It's not. So, but it's going to be okay, I promise. One of the other counselors also mentioned how many different schools are out there, and not just the A&M, the UT, the Texas Tech, the football schools. For instance, I grew up in Plano, went to Texas A&M, and when I met my husband, we were having a discussion, and he was like, I was telling him where I went to school, and I asked, well, where'd you go to school? He's like, well, I went to Tarleton. I don't know where that is. He's like, what? I'm like, yeah. And then he asked where I'm from, and I told him, and I said, well, where are you from? And he's like, I'm from Pilot Point. Yeah, I don't know where that is either. He's like, you need to get out more. So there are plenty of schools out there for your students. All right, so the whole application process, I have a link on here that goes to UT Austin just to kind of show you how every college has their own admissions website. So it will actually walk you through the process. I wish that there was one-stop shop, simple application for students and students, but there's not, unfortunately. So every college kind of requires different things. They want different things. They may want a different application, which I'll talk about here in just a minute. But the students can go to all of these admissions websites, and it will tell them specifically everything that they need. Okay. We definitely want them to complete the application before the deadlines. We discuss this with them. We have the fun little phrases that have been said. So they're used to hearing that from us. Let's see. We talked about that a little bit. We're going to talk about Parchment and getting their official transcript sent through Parchment to the schools. Their transcript is updated on Hack, and that's the unofficial transcript that they can go online and view, not the graded app. I always have to clarify that now with students. That graded app was created by a way smarter student than I will ever be, and it's phenomenal. But Hack, the Home Access Center, is what we use to update GPA and to upload their transcripts every semester. So the Parchment is our electronic way of sending transcripts for students that can be sent quicker and faster than the snail mail way. So letters of recommendation I'm going to get into in just a minute on a slide, but I'll skip that part for now because we're going to get into that. All right, like I mentioned, I wish there was a one-stop shop for applications for students. But once you do go to the admissions websites, you'll be able to see which applications are required by that college. Some colleges are even okay with a couple. A lot of out-of-state schools and private schools will use the Common App. That's a very popular one. If they're going to stay in the state of Texas, a public school, Apply Texas is the big one that a lot of colleges will use, but they will also have their own applications as well. So you can use either one. They're fine. The Coalition app is another different app or application that the students can use that some colleges like to have. Send.edu is a really popular one. I'm going to be honest, it's one of my favorites as a counselor to upload. It's easy to upload a lot of different information for your students. But, and like I said, you're going to just want to visit those specific admissions websites so they know which application that they're going to use. All right, transcripts. Oh, I just went out. Updated transcripts. I mentioned parchment. These are the steps that the students can take. Every high school has a parchment account. So when you go to your student's high school webpage, you can click on the counselor page, and then usually there's a link or a button that will say official transcript. When you click on that, it more than likely will go straight to the district parchment page, and you'll click your student's high school. That will immediately link to that parchment site. And once the student does that, the student has to create a profile, kind of like they have to do for College Board, and it's not going to let them choose a college and send that transcript until they complete that profile. So we get a lot of times questions like, it's not letting me send it, it's not letting me send it. You haven't completed the profile yet, like you have to answer the questions. And we all know our students, sometimes they don't want to sit down and do that, but they are going to have to do that. The first 3 transcripts sent to colleges are free. After that, there is a fee that is charged. Okay? Every campus does it a little bit differently in how they have students request for transcripts, but I believe most all of them are online, the links. The other thing about A&M and Texas Tech, they have a different method of sending a transcript that they will say that they don't accept parchment, but you're still going to request through parchment, and then the registrar will know how to send it. So you'll be good. Letters of recommendation. I have a lot to say about this. No. Not all colleges are going to require letters of recommendation. So the student needs to research if they are required or not. If they're not required and they don't need to send them, it's not going to help them get in to send them. The college admissions counselors have told us that, for instance, some colleges may require 2 letters of recommendation, okay? So some kiddos are like, I'm going to show them, I'm going to send them 4 because I'm better than that next person. So the college admissions counselors have said, first 2 that come in, those are the 2 that we read. The next 2 that come in, we're going to throw in the trash. Like they don't even open them, okay? You have to remember how many applications these college admissions counselors are having to go through and read and process, and so they're not going to take anything more than what's required, if that makes sense. We ask students to please be respectful of people that they are asking to write the letter of recommendation. Give them 2 to 3 weeks, especially with teachers. You'll find, or we have found, that some teachers are going to write more letters of recommendation and be asked to write more letters of recommendation. So it is nice if they have a little bit of heads up that the student may need a letter of rec. They may want some more information about your student. So that's another reason that to give them more time for your student to give them like a resume of things that they've been involved in and those type of things. We tell students that be careful who you ask to write a letter of rec. You may have a favorite teacher. That teacher may not think so fondly of you. So it happens. You never know. But we definitely want students to ask teachers, especially coaches, etc., people that know them really well. We also prefer and ask them to get high school teachers to write letters of rec. I tell kids all the time, like I had one young lady ask one time, well, can I get my first grade teacher to write one? Okay, I really hope you've changed since first grade. Like, you were probably a precious first grader, but unless you still have that relationship with her, she may not know you quite as well right now. Counselors, same thing. The common application has the counselor write a letter of recommendation. There are different ways per campus that we will ask the students to give us maybe some more information about them so we can write a better letter of rec for them. I did have a student one time, my husband is also in education, and one of his athletes called him on spring break, I just happened to be his counselor, and said, hey, can you have your wife write me a letter of rec real quick? And I'm like, no, it's spring break. But I did. I wrote it for him. But just be mindful of that. And we ask students to be mindful of that and asking, especially if you want a good letter of recommendation written. Because if you have to write one real quick, yeah, I'm writing during my spring break. This is his letter of rec. That's it. So I didn't do that, I promise. I didn't do that. Deadlines, definitely give the person that's writing the letter of recommendation deadlines so they are well aware. Like I mentioned, some teachers get asked to write several letters of recommendation so they can kind of keep track of all of that. And definitely follow up with that teacher and send a thank you note. That's just kind of a nice little extra gesture. Some teachers like Starbucks. I'm kidding. But like even a thank you email, just something to follow up with them would be appreciated, I'm sure. Essays. Just briefly to touch on this, the colleges and the applications do have essays. I get asked a lot from students, well, do I have to do all of them? Yes. We advise to do all of them. If you're kind of that bubble kid, writing the optional essay is going to benefit you. Usually there's a topic also or an essay question or something at the bottom of the application that's going to ask or say, is there anything else that we need to know about you? This is a time for your student to brag on themselves. Okay, a lot of times we tell kiddos, or I tell my kiddos, stop talking about yourself all the time, But this is a time we want them to talk about themselves and tell positive things. If your student had to have a job or worked during high school because you needed them to help provide for the family, and so they weren't able to take as many classes as certain students, and they had to have release, junior and senior year, that's a time that you write about that. Maybe an incident that happened in high school where their grades slipped a little bit. That's a time that you write about that. So those are definitely opportunities that you want to take advantage of. Definitely use creativity. The English teachers do a good job. Junior and senior English teachers do a good job of discussing this and going over this with them. And kind of like that, that like standout phrase to get their attention and get the college admissions reps' attention in reading their essays. Like I mentioned, they read a lot of essays. So, kind of getting them engaged into their essay topics for sure. And then the last thing, definitely you want to have someone proofread it. We've all sent an email where we go back and reread it and we're like, ooh, I misspelled that word, or, stuff like that. So having our English teachers across the district do a great job of saying, sure, I'll edit that for you or proofread it for you. Counselors, some of us were English teachers. We will do the same thing and help out. So I have a math counselor on my team who I go to for math, and she sends me her English kiddos for English. So there's some on every campus. But now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Cook. Surprise.
I think I've answered all but 2 questions, so I'll get to those. Like I said, I tried to personalize the responses. Are you able to see everybody else's questions? Okay, great. So you have everything right now from individualized LSU contacts to articles on how much I can raise my SAT score. So those will all be there. Somebody just asked a great question, which was, how long can I view this? And because you can see my answer, you know that I said I have no idea, because this is the first time I've ever used Slido. But my email is on there, and I'm happy to copy and paste all of those for you if you want to shoot me an email. So I will share those. I want to answer one question that I didn't entirely want to type out on there, okay? So we're just going to Facebook Live it for all of the world. So one of the questions was, and this is a fair question in 2020, basically, does my student need to emancipate themselves because of the tax bracket? There may have been a time where that seemed like a crazy question, and it sure isn't anymore. So that's a really great question for a couple of reasons. One, reality, numbers, math. 2, adversity score and College Board. And for whatever reason, our country has moved in this direction. We're putting families, not we, they are putting people in a position where it's almost better for you to get divorced on paper, emancipate your child, and look like everything's falling apart. Okay? So that would be one option, and some people are taking that route. Here's a much better option. Okay? So there are actually financial planners who specialize in asset protection, legal, bookkeeping, Aunt Becky, legal bookkeeping that really help you plan for that. So I got to go to the Institute for College Admissions at Harvard, and they said really when you look at financial aid, they said our students who qualify for financial aid or live below the poverty line, they don't pay for school, and are very, very wealthy don't pay for school because they have financial planners that hide their money. And so the only people paying for school are everybody in the middle. Okay, so there are things out there. You do not have to emancipate your child. You do not have to get a divorce. I wish that didn't sound so crazy, but like it's happening right now because of the adversity score. So I recommend you getting online. I don't have any recommendations for you because as a district employee I can't, but there are financial planners out there that will help you plan in that way. I know people that have done it. So if that's something that is a reality for your family, there are resources out there. So you can look at those and take care of them. So couldn't type all that. All right, so that's that. We are done. I'm going to keep Slido open until probably lunch tomorrow, so please feel free to ask whatever you want. I'm happy to share it out. I'd really like to thank the Frisco ISD counselors for sharing tonight, so if we can clap for them. And thank you to y'all.